It was the kind of conversation you could tell had been building for months, maybe even years. The kind of interview where the celebrity sitting in the chair isn't just there to promote something. They're there to let the air out of a balloon that's been swelling with pressure, gossip, and public expectation until it felt like it might burst. And for Rachel Zegler, that moment came now. From the second she sat down, there was a sense that this wasn't going to be the polished PR version of events. No carefully filtered sound bites, no dodging the obvious. Rachel looked like someone ready to speak about everything, the messy, the misunderstood, and the moments that had almost broken her. It's a side of her the public hasn't really seen before. Ever since she was catapulted into the spotlight with West Side Story, she's been viewed through the lens of the roles she plays and the interviews she gives. But this was different. This was Rachel, unfiltered, sitting in the aftermath of months of Snow White backlash, years of career pressure, and a lifetime of being asked to prove who she is, even to people who should already know. When Disney announced the live-action remake of Snow White, it was supposed to be a career dream. A fairy tale in every sense. Rachel, a young Latina actress from New Jersey, would be stepping into the shoes, and the iconic yellow and blue gown, of the very first Disney princess. On paper, it was history-making. A casting choice meant to represent progress in an industry that's been criticized for decades for its lack of diversity. But instead of applause and celebration, the reaction was complicated. The praise was there at first, but so was skepticism. And soon, the skepticism gave way to an online avalanche of criticism that would follow her all the way up to the film's release and beyond. The Snow White backlash started small. It began with comments about the set photos, leaked by paparazzi before the studio was ready to show the world the official look. The costumes looked different, the setting didn't match the animated original. And fans of the 1937 classic were already bracing for changes. Then came the interviews. Rachel, trying to speak candidly about why this Snow White would be different, talked about how the original story lacked agency for its heroine. She spoke about wanting to portray a princess who didn't just wait for a prince to save her. But in the age of TikTok clips and Twitter hot takes, her comments didn't land as intended. They were chopped, re-edited, and reposted with captions like "Rachel Zegler hates Snow White" or "She's mocking the original." And just like that, the internet had its villain, or at least, its target. Rachel admits now that she underestimated how fast the narrative could spiral. "I was speaking from a place of passion," she says. But passion doesn't always survive when it's taken out of context. It's a painful truth for any public figure to learn, that your words don't belong to you once they're out in the world. They belong to the algorithm, to strangers with editing software, to people who may have already decided what they want to think of you. And as the backlash grew, so did the toll on her mental health. This was the first time in her young career that she felt the weight of real hostility. "I was in therapy every week," she admits. "Sometimes twice a week. I couldn't just keep it inside and pretend it wasn't affecting me." The therapy wasn't about damage control, it was about survival. She describes days when she couldn't open her phone without feeling her chest tighten. Nights when she replayed every interview she'd given, wondering if staying silent might have been better than speaking from the heart. And worst of all, the creeping fear that maybe she had ruined what was supposed to be a dream role before audiences even had a chance to see it. But the most shocking part of her confession wasn't about Snow White at all. It was about West Side Story, the film that made her a star. In what might be the most disturbing story to come out of her interview, Rachel revealed that during her casting process for that film, white executives asked her to prove her Latina heritage. Not in the metaphorical sense. Literally. She doesn't say how they wanted her to prove it. But the implication is enough to make you wince. This was her heritage, her lived experience, and yet, in that moment, it was treated like an item on a checklist. For Rachel, it was a moment that cut deeper than any online insult. It was the realization that, no matter how talented she was, some people in power still saw her identity as something to be scrutinized, even doubted. And hearing it now, it's hard not to see the thread connecting that early experience to the backlash she faced with Snow White. Whether it was studio executives or anonymous social media users, Rachel has been navigating the politics of identity in Hollywood since the very start of her career. The cruelty of the internet can be easy to dismiss until you're the one in the crosshairs. Rachel talks about how quickly the conversation around Snow White stopped being about the movie itself and became about her as a person. People were making comments about her looks, her personality, her voice, and even her relationship history, all under the guise of criticizing her take on Snow White. It stopped feeling like professional criticism, she says. It felt personal. And when it's personal, it's hard to brush it off. And yet, there were moments of light in the middle of the storm. Rachel shares stories about young Latina girls who sent her messages after the casting announcement. One told her she had never dressed up as a Disney princess for Halloween because she didn't think she looked like one, but now she couldn't wait to be Snow White. Another said she showed Rachel's casting photo to her grandmother, who cried. "That's what I hold on to," Rachel says softly. "That's what matters when everything else gets ugly." Still, the toll was real. She describes the months leading up to the film's release as a blur of press appearances, social media storms, and whispered advice from friends and co-stars to just hang in there. But hanging in there doesn't make the pressure go away. It's like you're walking a tightrope, she explains. One wrong word and you fall. And in Hollywood, a fall can feel like it lasts forever. The way Rachel tells it, the backlash also made her hyper-aware of the double standard she faces as a young woman in the industry. Male co-stars, she points out, can be blunt, sarcastic, even dismissive in interviews without facing the same kind of sustained vitriol. "I'm expected to be grateful, sweet, and perfect at all times," she says. "And if I'm not, I'm ungrateful, I'm difficult, I'm a diva." It's a lose-lose game, one that's been played on women in Hollywood for decades. And then there's the industry machine itself, the PR teams, the studio representatives, the marketing strategies that often push actors into non-stop publicity runs that leave no room for missteps. Rachel says that once the backlash began, she was told to clarify her comments in interviews. But that only seemed to make things worse. Every attempt to explain was reframed as doubling down. Every effort to move on was seen as dodging the issue. "There's no winning," she says. "The only way to win is to not play." But when you're promoting a movie, you don't get that choice. By the time the movie finally hit screens, the conversation had shifted again, this time to box office numbers and whether the backlash had hurt the film's performance. For Rachel, it was bittersweet. On one hand, she was proud of the work she had done, proud of her castmates, proud of the new take on a classic story. On the other, she couldn't help but feel that the noise had drowned out the art. "I wanted people to see the movie before making up their minds," she says. But a lot of people made up their minds a long time ago. As she reflects on it now, Rachel is surprisingly calm. She talks about learning to separate her sense of self-worth from the opinions of strangers. About accepting that the internet is not a jury, even though it often feels like one. And about how therapy has become a non-negotiable part of her life. "It's not about fixing me," she says. "It's about giving me the tools to live with all of this." The interview ends on a note that feels both vulnerable and defiant. "I don't know if I'll ever get to just enjoy a role again without thinking about how it's going to be picked apart," she admits. But then she leans forward, almost smiling. "I also know that I didn't come this far to stop now. I've been doubted before. I've been told to prove myself in ways no one should have to. And I'm still here." It's the kind of closing statement that lingers, not just because of what it says about Rachel Zegler, but because of what it says about the industry she's in. Hollywood loves a comeback story. But it loves the drama before the comeback even more. And for better or worse, Rachel's already given them plenty of both.